Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing all that you do to make this world a better place.
Well, I appreciate that. And likewise, and we're going to talk about everything you do because you inspire so many people. I see it on Instagram all the time. It is very cool. But first off, how we know each other is that this is the first time we're chatting face to face. But
Mm.
I had your lovely significant other, Emilio, on my podcast. And then you reached out to me and said, I have quits. And I was like, oh, this person is so badass. I cannot wait to hear her quitting story.
Yes. And by the way, I love that you talk about quitting because I haven't heard of anybody else. I think that's what attracted me so much to your podcast and your message. I was like, this girl is a badass, because of what she's doing. And it fits so much along the lines with, my brand Disruptive, about doing something disruptive, something that nobody else really talking about, but how powerful it is to talk about the lessons we learn from the good quits we made in our life.
Absolutely. And when I saw that you had this disruptive apparel and your whole thing is about being disruptive, I was like, oh, of course she's a quitter. Like, of course she gets why this is an
Yes,
important thing in society.
yes, yes,
Because I always say people are always like, live your best life, but nobody stops and talks about like that requires some quits. And those are,
yes,
but we've all this stigma about quitting. And so like there's this kind of big crevasse between, okay, here's my current life, here's my better life over here, but how do I get there without being a quitter? Oh, no, you kind of have to quit.
yes, yes. I couldn't agree more.
Well, awesome. So I was just watching this very inspirational video with Rachel, and it talks about her journey, and she uses the very specific word "quit" many times in this video, which I loved. Yes. And so I'm like, okay, if you could take us back to like currently, Rachel is an actress and she dances and she doesn't she trains capoeira for I like so every once in a while I'll see you do a capoeira move and I get all very excited. But take us back to when you were younger, kind of preteen years, and you got into gymnastics.
Yes, well, and this, the video that I recently put out, again, a video I worked really hard on is a lot of kind of my story and how I even became an actress, like you said, in feature films, and something that I literally got told my whole life was impossible, that it would never happen. And, but it really started again when I was in gymnastics. I grew up a very competitive gymnast, and I put so much pressure on myself to be the best, and I also lived in fear all the time, fear and anxiety, so much to the point where I was literally like throwing up once a week, every Tuesday before I had this one coach. His name was Mike Payne, and he just scared the shit out of me. And I mean, I was from the ages of 8 to 14, and I remember, looking back now, especially at little kids, and realizing the world that I had created for myself in my head. uh, it's terrifying to believe that I lived in that kind of world when I was that young, and I missed half the school year because I subconsciously made myself sick or I faked being sick so I didn't have to handle the stress of both school and gymnastics. So I wouldn't go to school, but then I would go to gymnastics. And, you know, I was so young, but I also, no matter how old you are, your world is your world, and at the time, it was my mom's life, it was my friend's life, it was my identity, it was everything that I was. And so even though I was scared every day, I wanted to quit all the time, my mom being the best mom, the awesome mom that she is, just wanted to teach me, I think, resilience, and wanted to teach me, hey, don't give up when it's hard. Like, you keep going and you're going to get better and you're going to learn, you're going to grow. And, you know, and that, after a while, that wishing to get out and trying to find a way out so bad, it actually manifested in me breaking my hand. And I have 6 pins in my hand. You can see my battle scar there.
Ooh.
And I remember, just to kind of show how bad, what the right word is, intense it was. I was winning this whole gymnastics meet. I threw a back handspring on the beam, and my parents said they could hear the crack from the auditorium, like from the other side of the auditorium. And I came off the beam, my hand was like shattered. I had no bones in my hand, they were gone. And my coach looked at me and she's like, Rachel, get back on the beam. Your team needs you. Finish your routine. And this like 13-year-old girl just be like, okay, I'll try, And so I go to do a cartwheel, and I just collapse on my head because I have no bones in my hand, And
Oh my.
luckily the other coach saw and pulled me, and then I had to fly with a broken hand, Anyway, it was traumatic. But from that, I remember, I would still, when I was recovering, I would go to practice, and when it finally came time for me to really go back, every part of my being couldn't even fathom having to really train and compete again. And somehow I finally got up the courage to tell my mom, which was honestly one of the scariest things to do. A lot of times when we're quitting, we have to tell people, and we're worried about what they're going to think about us, you know. And I was terrified, you know. You know, and I finally did, you know. And again, I always preface this with, I love my mom. I have the best mom in the world. We're best friends now. She's my biggest supporter. Like, I couldn't be more grateful for her. But at the time, you know, her doing the best she knew how to do, you know, it was hard for her to hear that. And she, you know, told me, you know, I just don't like you right now. I don't want to be around you for a while. And she was my everything at that time in my life. And so it was pretty crushing to hear that. And then, you know, a lot of my friends didn't really want to hang out with me anymore, or I couldn't hang out with them because that I didn't go to gymnastics anymore. And so all of who I knew that I was at the time was gone. So I felt extremely lost. I went through like depression. I felt like just confused and sad and cried in my room a bunch, you know. And again, people might be listening to this being like, yeah, well, you were 14, but like, I was 14. Like, that's a very, very pivotal time in your life when you start to make, you know, so many things in your mindset and your, you know, emotional being, your subconscious are being layered in there. And, you know, I was just so sad. And the quitting seemed like, you know, obviously I couldn't not quit because it was too hard to do it. But obviously quitting seemed like just the worst thing I could have ever done. And, so after sitting and crying in my room for, I don't even know how long, months or something like that, I remember seeing this dance movie. It was the first dance movie I'd ever seen. I remember sitting in the theater and just crying my eyes out and feeling so inspired and being like, that's what I want to do with my life. You know, like, I went from feeling so lost and confused and scared and not knowing who I was anymore to all of a sudden in a 2-hour experience being like knowing, like just knowing, like, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to act, I'm going to dance, I'm going to perform, I'm going to inspire, just like those girls on the screen showed me, you know, how to do. And the story of Center Stage is this girl who gets told that she's not good enough and she doesn't have the right body type and she's never going to make it. And she figures out a way to do it, you know, anyways. And I mean, I just sat in the theater crying and praying and visualizing, saying, that's what I'm going to do, until, you know, after everybody had left, someone in my family came and pulled me out of the theater saying, like, we got to go, you know. And then I just, from that moment, you know, I just was really loud about that. You know, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to act and I'm going to dance. I'm going to inspire. And everybody was like, yeah, have fun trying. Nobody ever makes it, you know. And, you know, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. My family's a medical family. You know, nobody's in the acting or entertainment industry. Like, so there's no path. I have no idea what I'm doing. I get lost in classes. But when I quit gymnastics and I actually started acting and dancing, it was the first time, like, I'll never forget the feeling that I felt when I just felt what it felt like to just fully be alive, you know, in this new passion that I found. Of like, I wasn't scared anymore, you know, like, I couldn't wait to go to dance class. I couldn't wait to go to acting class, even though there were certain things that, of course, I had insecurities, and if people told me I wasn't good, but it didn't matter. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can. I'm going to stay longer. I'm going to stay after hours. I'm going to, you know, and I think there's so many powerful lessons in that, of like, when you find the thing that really lights you up, like, it doesn't matter how hard it is. It doesn't matter how long of a journey it is. Like, you are so fulfilled and so full that you do it anyways. And you'll always be better at the thing that you love, you know? And anyways, I mean, that resulted, kind of, long story short, because I don't want to, you know, take up the whole time talking about the story. You can watch the video if you want to, where I tell the full version of this, and it's a lot of what I speak on. But after I had that experience, you know, the film that I saw was Center Stage. 6 years later, and a roller coaster ride of emotions, and a lot of things that didn't go the way that I wanted them to, you know, like the things, you know, I didn't get into my dream college that I thought that I was supposed to. I ended up moving to LA when I was 18. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know anybody. And after getting, you know, turned down by several acting agents and everybody telling me I'm not ready, I saw this random casting call on the wall for Center Stage 2, which is literally the sequel to the film that changed my life when I was a little girl. And I almost didn't go. Like, I literally almost didn't go. I talked myself out of going, and all the doubts and the fears were like, who are you to do this? You just got turned down. Like, you're not going to be anything. You know what I mean? Like, why would you even go? You're going to make a fool of yourself. And I remember going home and making this silly justification of like, I already took a dance class earlier today, so I don't need to go to the audition. You know what I mean? Like, what? I don't know how I made myself even believe that. And but I remember going home and having this really powerful moment, those dramatic moments in the mirror when you're like, I just felt this feeling that was like, you have to go. And I swear it like dragged me out of my bathroom and to the audition, luckily just in time. And then I went in 6 different times for that film, like 6 different times, like a 3-month process of being so close but so far from your childhood dream. And this wasn't just something I saw in the movie and then I like never touched it again. It was like I watched this movie every time I got discouraged to help inspire me again. I had vision boards and like I wrote it down all the time and I would visualize myself doing it all the time, like literally put into practice from age 14 to at this point I was 19, 20 years old, that like all the different manifestation tricks and tools or whatever, like I lived that stuff because I got so obsessed with it, probably out of necessity because I grew up in such fear and anxiety all the time. And anyways, after a crazy ride of ups and downs and emotions and crying myself to sleep at night, like hoping and praying that this might actually be possible, I got a call from an agent that turned me down a couple months ago saying, Rachel, Sony wants to book you as the lead role in Center Stage 2. And literally doing the thing that everybody told me was impossible, that I thought on some level was impossible, and that experience and so many other experiences is really why I'm so passionate about quitting things that aren't, really fueling you or that make you really happy, and also not giving in to doubt and fear and limiting beliefs and learning how to use creativity and imagination and movement to disrupt those things and to become the hero of your own life story. And that's really why I started, my brand Disruptive, because of that.
That is so beautiful. Okay. By the way, we're pausing for, oh, now it's not work. It's not doing it anymore. I was feeding back for a while, I think out of your speakers, but it's not
Yeah.
happening. So Buzzy, just cut that out. Dear editor, that seems to be gone. Yay. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that story. That is a total inspiration to anybody who is currently going through the I need to quit a thing and that identity crisis you went through. Like
Yes.
that's huge. The if I'm not a gymnast, who am I?
Yes.
And like you said, you're at a very impressionable age, and somebody who's so pivotal in your life doesn't come back to you to say like, I still love you. You're still
Yeah.
my daughter, which is like that's the ultimate like, oh, don't worry, that wasn't your identity. This is like, nope. Because well, and you know what? A lot of parents, and again, like we're saying this because we know that parents are doing the best that they can with what they have, but a
Yep.
lot of them build their identities around what their kids are doing. So then
Yes.
when you want to make a quit, it's not like who am I, but then now also who is my mom, and that pressure to
Mhm.
essentially you've got the identities of two people on your shoulders.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful. My mom and I have had multiple conversations about this later in life, and she had said to me, I'll never get that invested in anything that any of my kids do again. Like, she said, I just want my kids to be happy. But I think as any moms out there listening, I think it's really powerful to understand that, like, to have some sort of boundaries or honest conversations with your kids of like, if they tell you something that's really hard for them, at least let them know that you love them, you know what I mean? Regardless, it might be hard for you, it might suck, you know what I mean? But like, just let them know that, you love them and it's okay and you'll get through it together.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember having a conversation with a friend in medical school, and that friend's parents really wanted him to marry somebody of a certain religion. And I
Mhm.
remember growing up with parents who did not care at all what I did, marriage wise or whatever. I mean, if they did, I just didn't know. My dad would
Right.
always be like, who'd they vote for? Like, that's all he seemed to care about.
Yeah.
But I remember telling my friend, I was like, gosh, I feel really lucky. I said, my mom just wants me to be happy. And he said, oh, that's the thing. My mom does too, but she thinks that I will only be happy if I follow this path.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think we're all trying to do the best we know how to do with what we have, with what we've been given, our current understanding, our current mental strength, emotional intelligence, whatever it is. And I think that allows a lot of compassion. That really helped me. And I think anybody that's wanting to quit or having a hard time telling somebody that matters to them, or they're dealing with a challenge because it didn't go the way they wanted it to, to just, I think, self-love and compassion is the number one thing in everything. Compassion for self, compassion for others, knowing that like we are only the way we are and we only think the way we think about ourselves and the world around us because of our programming, all the things that we've heard, the stories we've heard, the opinions we've heard about who we are and what the world is around us. And I think there's so much ability to, with self-love and compassion for self and others, to to have a better understanding of like, hey, my perception of what's going on is not their perception, and vice versa. And we will never know what it feels like to be another person. Like, I'll never know what it's like to be you, and you'll never know what it's like to be me, and neither of us will ever know what it's like to be anybody else, And so, the suffering that as human beings, like, we're going to go through suffering, we're going to go through pain, and it's going to be hard. But I'm really passionate recently about understanding and talking about, how your suffering can become your superpower, and how I really don't think that we can learn resilience or mental strength or have this drive and this purpose and this determination without going through difficult things. And I posted something yesterday on my page, that basically said, your suffering can become your superpower. And if you decide it to be, because it can also not, it can hold you back, and it can block you from doing all the things you really want to do in life. But if you decide to learn from it and grow from it, it can literally become a superpower. For so long, I didn't realize that. And I just wish that I learned earlier that, like, the hard things that you're going through, they mean something, they matter. And that, like, I would not have the resilience I have, I would not have the drive, I would not have the determination, I would not have the purpose I have if I wouldn't have gone through some extreme challenges growing up, that like shook me, that knocked me on my feet, that like made me lay in bed and not want to get out of bed for weeks and cry my eyes out, because, it's like that suffering has allowed me so much incredible drive to want to help and to serve and to teach principles that help you get through the suffering and help you not just end up suffering, but feeling peaceful and loved and powerful regardless of what you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's now the thing's doing it again. I think it's just my headset. Sorry, Buzzy, cut that out. Absolutely agree. I was at a conference the other weekend for physician entrepreneurs, and so a lot of people in that room were trying to get out of medicine. And we were on a panel, and they asked each one of us, what would you tell the person that you were on your first day of medical school? Like, if you could go back and be like an angel and just see you on your first day of medical school, what would you tell that person? And I had to stop and think, like, would I tell them, like, no, turn back, don't do it, don't go to medical school? And I said, nope, I would tell them what you just said, like, you got to do this, and it may be terribly difficult, but those difficulties are for a purpose. It will not, and it's all, hindsight can be 20/20, and that's what's so hard about current sight is, like, it's just taking that faith in the universe. Like, I know that when I look back, I'll realize this was for a reason.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my buddy Josh Trent had a guest on who was talking about graduation episodes or graduation events. Like, if you want to talk about resilience, you had to go through an event that required resilience.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And
yes.
Like, as a quitting person, I have to go through events where I have to do quits. So I think that's just exactly what you're talking about, right?
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I can't stress enough. I love that you said, hindsight is easier when you're in it, though. Like, it is rough, and that's when I feel like, and why I talk about, just like we go to a physical gym, people understand the concept of, like, if I want to get physically strong, I need to go to a physical gym to do so, or physically move my physical body in some way to develop strength. Like, what if we could all look at every day and say, what did I do today to get emotionally stronger? What did I do today to get spiritually stronger? What did I do today to get mentally stronger? And what did I do today to get physically stronger? Because it's all combined. Like, we are so much more than our physical bodies. I love the quote that says, like, I'm a spiritual body having, or I'm a physical body having a spiritual experience, or something like that. I'm kind of messing it up, but that we are so much more than our physical, these earth suits that we walk around in. Like, I love looking at my body and like, oh, that's a fun earth suit I have. And there's so much more, and like spiritual and emotional and mental strength will take you so much further. I believe if we focus on that, then especially if we get too lost in focusing on the physical, and things that have helped me so much when I'm in it, when I'm in those times when, I've been through like so many toxic relationships and so many ridiculously hard breakups. I mean, breakups are another thing that I feel like we should talk about when you're talking about like quit happens, the best things in my life have been the most challenging, hard breakups that like I didn't know that I would ever get through. You know what I mean? Like so much extreme suffering, like feeling so depressed, like crying on the floor, like, you know what I mean? Like not wanting to do anything, feeling like I lost my whole world. And for people to understand that, like, you know, well, something that somebody said when I was going through a really difficult breakup that helped me so much. She was like, because I was just devastated, like devastated when going through this breakup. And I went to this yoga class and she was like, I was just sobbing after. She's like, oh, sweetheart, are you okay? And I was like, I'm just going through this breakup and I just having a hard time, you know? And she's like, oh my gosh, that's the best thing. You get to fall in love again. You get to have a first kiss again. Like, do you know how many people would die to have that again? And I'm just like, what? I'm looking at her like she's crazy. But looking back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is brilliant. A disruptive like thought, a switch, a perception shift that can help you, you know, and again, that didn't make it all the pain go away, but it did allow me to have a different perspective where I really did. I was like, oh my gosh, I do get to fall in love again. And I do get to have a first kiss again. And how amazing will that be when I'm ready for that, you know? And I mean, now being in like the best relationship I could ever imagine, you know, with somebody who I feel like I wished into reality, I want to scream from the rooftops to every woman out there or every guy out there, like, do not settle. Like, do not, no matter how hard it is, no matter how many nights you have to cry yourself to sleep, it will be worth it if you end a relationship that is not supporting you, that is not up-leveling you, that you feel like. I questioned almost every relationship I was in, and you know, and I was always feeling like I was supposed to meet this person, but I'd always like stay in these relationships that weren't fully fulfilling me, you know, and because I was scared to be alone, or because I was scared to be honest that I wasn't fully fulfilled in the relationship. And I'm just every day, you know, so grateful that I did the hard thing, you know what I mean? And that all the lessons that I learned with every breakup or every relationship, that I actually decided to stop repeating the patterns. You know, like I've had so many opportunities, even in this awesome relationship that I'm in, that I feel like is the best gift of my life, to repeat old patterns that would have completely messed everything up, you know? And I was terrified, I was scared, but I was more scared of the opposite. I was more scared of what I knew would happen if I didn't change the pattern, you know, if I didn't implement the lesson, you know, that life is always trying to teach us these lessons. If we don't learn the lesson, it'll keep trying to teach us the lesson until we actually learn it. And I just hope that anybody listening to this, like, if you're in a bad relationship, if you're in something that you're not happy with, that you don't feel fulfilled in, like, get out. It will be the best thing you've ever done, you know, and it'll be the hardest thing, but it will be the best thing.
That's a beautiful sentiment. I love that. It's so important to focus on what you just talked about, which is you can't have two things at once in many situations. You can't have your old patterns and have a fantastic relationship with new patterns that you know are more functional, right? You can't have this boyfriend or relationship or whatever that is definitely not working for you and this man of your dreams. And in most other situations, you can't have a job that's really mediocre and a job you love, right? There's an opportunity cost to staying with these things that aren't working for you.
Yes.
And you've got to realize that, yeah, quitting might be hard, but think about when you're on your deathbed and you look back on what you may have missed if you didn't quit. That should be kind of a wake-up call, right?
Yes. Well, and one of the most powerful things for me, and actually one of the shirts we have at Disruptive Apparel, it says "Flip the Fear," and that statement to me it is so incredibly meaningful, because that flip the fear is what helped me actually start making decisions in a much more empowered way, healthy decisions. You know, if you can flip your fear. So I was always so afraid to be fully honest about how I was feeling, because I was scared of what the other person might think. And I had a mentor of mine teach me, you know, he's like, stack all the reasons why it's going to be worse for you if you don't change. Like, make it real for you, write it down, feel the pain, like feel all of the pain that you're going to feel in a year from now, and 5 years from now, and 10 years from now. And like, the more real you make it, the easier it's going to be for you to change, to the point where now when I do that, you know, if any time, I mean, just like a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to not be fully honest or to omit a truth, and not follow my instincts of like, I need to share what I'm feeling. And I was terrified out of my mind. I mean, all day I felt this anxiety and I felt like I was going to throw up because I was like, well, do I really need to say it? And I was like, no, you say it now. Just say it now. Like, don't repeat the pattern. And I literally had to like close my eyes and visualize what would happen, all the things that would happen if I didn't change. Like it would probably eventually lead to, losing it, losing everything, And in that instant, when I felt the pain of the stacking of all the things that would be worse, it was like I couldn't not do it. I went directly and I was honest, and I told exactly how I was feeling, and it ended up being an awesome conversation. But I think it is in the things like, be disruptive to me is be brave, every day, like do the brave thing, and quitting sometimes is the brave thing to do, and that we need to redefine what quitting means, that it can be one of the most powerful, incredible, transformative things for us, but make sure that it's the brave thing, if it's the easy thing or the easy way out doesn't always lead to the best life, like,
Yeah, I totally agree. I always talk about the difference between giving up and quitting.
yes.
Yeah, and so like when it's just you don't want to do it anymore because it's too hard, that's giving up. Quitting is when you're like, this has taken negative effects on my life, or I'm now missing out on other opportunities that I know were better suited for me.
Mm,
That's strategic quitting, and that's what I'm trying
yeah.
to advocate. And what I love that you just brought up was a fear tackling technique, because
Mm,
so much of what people have standing in the way of their quit is fear.
yes.
And I talk about Tim Ferriss has this fear setting exercise, which is great to do, but I love this technique. And I just want to pull it back out. And if case anybody, wants to write this down again, is you
Yeah.
said, like, think about all the things that will happen if you don't change and then really feel those.
Yes. And I think that's the most important thing, right? Because we can say all the day long the reasons, but if you don't make it real for you, like emotional, we have to get it where it's a point where, like, I mean, I was almost in tears because it felt so real. And this is why I really believe that creativity and imagination are our superpowers, And what honestly, I feel like gets beat out of a lot of us growing up because we're told, like, oh, stop imagining things or stop daydreaming. It's like, no, I want to live in my like future realities and celebrate every morning I have a practice of I celebrate my future. I practice gratitude for my future memories. So every day I wake up and I listen to this one video that puts me in this space that is so empowered, and my mind just goes off on this daydreaming of or future visualizations of my future memories, and they've become so real to me that I wake up and that gets me so excited for my day. So we can use the power of imagination to literally, I mean, just like my story, I was a little girl who saw a movie and said, that's what I want to do with my life. And I visualized it every single day, all the time. I watched myself living it. And then it happened. It became reality. And I can't tell you almost every film role that I've done since then. I mean, it makes me want to cry because I mean I have like 5 films coming out this year and a new TV show, and like but I know for a fact that like none of that would happen if I didn't decide to quit old patterns, quit old behaviors, and to learn to live in my imagination, to live in a creative mindset of that I like what am I doing every day to participate in the co-creation of my life. I'll say it again because I think it's such a powerful quote. Like, what am I doing every day to participate in the co-creation of my life? Like, we don't just go on autopilot and just kind of like go wherever life takes us. It's like, no, it's up to us to decide what do I really want, and then to be brave enough to not do the things that you don't want.
Oh, this is so good. This is so good, Rachel. Thank you so much. I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing. I can see and feel how much just this pattern of thinking has transformed your life and how much it means to you to be able to share it. So I appreciate you. I mean, just the terminology you use is really disruptive. You talk about things in a lot of different ways that I think people don't necessarily frame. Like, okay, let's use creativity as another tool to just imagine some future. Like I think Drew Canole, the founder of Organifi, he talks about sitting in your virtual trophy room if you ever get in one
Yep.
of those lower spots,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Just look in the wall, look everything I've accomplished, if you're having one of those lower days where you're starting to second guess yourself. and
Mm-hmm.
and something that you brought up too, that when you were talking about creativity, and I think in your story what I've noticed is that things start to transform for you when you combine like manifesting with your flow state. Because
Mm,
when you were
yeah.
describing when you finally found acting and dance, that sounded like a flow state to me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, and the flow state, I love that you said that, that we are so much more. I think it's all in the way that we feel. Like, and that's why I think so many times I get frustrated when people are like, oh, it's the secret, or oh, it's the law of attraction, or oh, it's manifestation. It's like, no, it's pretty logical actually. It's like, no, a thought makes me feel a certain way, which then because of the way that I'm feeling makes me go act a certain way. And then that action will put me in different opportunities around different people. And because of the thoughts that I'm thinking and the way that I'm feeling, I'm going to respond in a different way that's going to lead me down a completely different trajectory, and that I love thinking of thoughts not as positive or negative, but as productive or unproductive. Like, is this a productive thought or an unproductive thought? And what do I want my life to be about? Like unproductivity or productivity, And of course, it's not always about being productive. It's about being, but it's just, is it a disempowering thought? Is it going to lead me down a disempowered trajectory? Or is it going to lead me down an empowered trajectory? And I think that's helped me so much more than thinking about, oh, it's just, positivity or negativity. It's like, no, it's like deciding what kind of life you want to live, and it doesn't mean that that's the same life that your mom wants you to live or your dad wants you to live or what society tells you to live. It's like, no, it's like success is different for all of us, And I think it's just, we have to be decisive and we have to take time out of our day to say, what does a fulfilled life look like for me, and then allocate our time to learning how to set our daily habits, thoughts, and patterns so that we're almost reverse engineering goals. If I have the big goal of, I want to be an Academy Award winning actress someday, I want to do a movie with Sandra Bullock someday, like I got to set up my daily habits, thoughts, and patterns to lead me on a path that will take me down that trajectory. And if I'm not careful, it can go the completely opposite way. So it's like, I have to be very proactive in the co-creation of my life every day.
Yeah, that's super valuable. I always have my clients start off by, okay, sit down and make your ideal day. And we're talking every aspect of it. Because if
Mm,
you're having a hard time deciding if you should quit a job or quit a relationship or quit the city you're in, well, let's, like you said, reverse engineer. Is that job, relationship, or city going to get you to that ideal day and those ideal goals? And
yes.
if not, well, that sure makes this decision a lot easier, right? Let's
Right, yeah, totally.
let's not even mess with the details. This wasn't even in your grand picture. So whether or
Yes,
not, it's going to be hard to quit it, that doesn't matter. Let's go for, eyes
totally.
on the prize.
Totally. Well, and I think like you said, the feeling, right? The flow state is so important. And I think what visualization does and like celebrating future gratitude does is gets you into the state of being that makes you feel good. And I think that's why self-love is self-care. When we go, if I'm having a really difficult day, and this is something I didn't used to do, right? I used to like work myself to the point of exhaustion. I felt depleted all the time because I was always trying to make everybody else happy. And I never learned until recently that like unless I do things to fill myself up, just literally doing things on a regular basis to make myself happy, whether it's going dancing in my room just to dance, like for nothing else, not to make a video, not to like nothing else, just to literally dance in my room and scream my face off, just to like get out emotion, to change my physical state of being so that I feel a different way, so that my actions can be different, or whether it's like, I need to go get a massage because I just can't think anymore. And I know that if I go do something that makes me feel better, I'll start thinking better and I'll start reacting better. So I think really like, and that's what I love so much in like what I call about like the disruption muscle, like how fast can you take something that is disempowering you and flip it to thinking of it in a way that is empowering you?
Oh yeah, the why is this happening for me instead of why is this happening to me shift.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, absolutely. This morning, I got kind of like a troll-esque comment on something that really threw me off, and it kind of frightened me because it was kind of stalkerish. And then I went into, kind of anxiety for a minute, and then I stopped and I had that flip and I thought, oh, this is warning me to, maybe be more cautious in this area, this area. And
Yes.
like that just disempowered the whole situation. It
I
made
love
it feel like, oh, thanks. I'm glad that happened. Now I can move on with some more
Yes.
information.
Yes, and that's where I think the whole goal is. And if you look at any incredibly successful, like game changer, like just person out there that's doing awesome stuff in the world, they have built that muscle, and I really believe it's a muscle. The more we use it, the easier it gets. At first it's like, oh, this is really difficult. Like I still feel anxiety, I still feel stress. This isn't helping me, but like the more you just practice it, just like anything else, like the more you practice something, it will continue to get easier and easier. I really believe the more we practice using that disruption muscle to flip the way that we're seeing something, I mean, it's literally life changing, and I'm only so passionate about it because literally on a daily basis, I don't just talk about this stuff. Like I live it. And even earlier today, like I'm in the middle of the most massive deal of my life, you know what I mean? Where I would, literally get to live my future dream, like, and I'm in the middle of in this waiting process where I could allow myself to feel so much anxiety or stress or fear because again, this massive dream of mine is so close. Or I could realize that like, hey, me feeling anxious or stressed out about this does nothing to help the situation, does nothing but make me feel worse. And then eventually that stress will cause physical illness, you know what I mean? Like my well-being. And I always have this mantra I repeat that no matter the outcome, like every time I take action, I win. So like every time I take action, I win. Like literally forgetting about like what the outcome is. But if I take action, whether that's I take action to meditate, whether that's I take action to have the hard conversation, whether that's I take action to brush my teeth, whatever it is, like, it's just, if you take action, you win. Like, and that's allowed me to blast through so many things that would have otherwise, I wouldn't have done because I was too scared, because I was afraid of not being perfect, or, you know what I mean? It was just like the baby steps. Like, did I take action today? Yes. Okay. Then I won the day. You know what I mean? Like I've really worked hard to forget about almost like big goal achievement, that I'm focused more on, did I win the day? You know what I mean? Did I take action today? Did I do the things that made me happy? Did I help others? How did I win the day? And that way we're not so, because I feel like if we're too focused on the big goals, it can leave you feeling like you're not enough, or it can leave you feeling overwhelmed. It can leave you feeling like it's so far out of reach that you can never celebrate your wins. It's like, we want to celebrate our wins every single day. So again, so you feel good about yourself. So then you're going to go think better thoughts, and you're going to go take better actions, So I hope everybody decides to quit like focusing on like the big outcomes, and to have the big goals, but then almost like forget about them and focus more on the daily habits, thoughts, and patterns, and then celebrate like you won. You get to win every day,
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Amen. Sister, that's fantastic, because so many entrepreneurs are in that cycle where we've got a goal and we're cranking and hustling all day long, and
Mm.
we've got this big goal, and until we get to that goal, it still feels like we haven't made it, right? We're still
Yes.
not enough in our business, or whatever we're doing as a person, we're not enough to get other people to, buy into what we're selling or whatever it is.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And like you said, that's so draining, because
Yes.
you just live in the not enough space, where if
Oh,
your entire thing for the day is, hey, if I get up and I meditate for 20 minutes, I've won the day. Yeah, that's so much easier. And then you don't walk around feeling like a not enough quote unquote loser. You walk around feeling like
yes.
I'm a total winner. The rest
Yeah.
of the day is just, like success fly to me, like
Yes.
come on
Yeah.
over, because I'm already a successful person.
Yes, exactly. And that's living, like you said, in the flow state. There's so many creative ways that we can disrupt the things that are holding us back, and put us in the flow state, that the state that again is just where you feel good about who you are and what you're doing in the world, regardless, like nothing can change other than the way that you're perceiving it. And you will feel completely different, and therefore you will respond completely different and you will put yourself in situations that are completely different in the best way, like I said, I almost didn't go to that audition because of fear, and self-doubt. And I can't even imagine, like, what if I didn't go? You know what I mean? Like, and how many times, I'm sure there's been other instances in my life where I have allowed fear to consume me or keep me stuck. And again, every time I feel that, I flip the fear, I stack all the reasons, and I say that to myself, like, imagine if you wouldn't have gone to that audition. Like, imagine what would have happened, like you wouldn't have any of the things that you have now. And so whenever I feel afraid, again, stacking the reasons why it'll be worse for you not to change, but also stacking the times when you did do it. You know what I mean? Like, remember all the times when you did feel proud of yourself, or you did the hard thing, and how awesome was, like why you're so grateful. And then it will be easier to do the hard thing.
That was
That was
lovely.
lovely.
And I think we're just going to wrap it up right there because Rachel and I had many other things, other quits in her life that we could talk about. I think we're just going to have to do an episode number 2 when we talk about
I
all your other quits. Like we've only gotten to like half of your life, but my goodness, you just have so many great ways to, like you said, flip the fear and disrupt your own thinking. I mean, in there, I saw a million mindset quits. Okay, I quit having to be perfect and I quit having to please everybody else, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. I love that.
And I hope that everybody else, like I was feeling it right there with you. I was imagining being you on your deathbed looking back and being like, what if I just gone to Center Stage 2 audition?
Yeah, I
And like
know.
the anxiety I just felt for you, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful. Next time that I like don't want, okay, maybe I try for this thing, I'm going to feel your anxiety there. I'm going to be like, what if she didn't go to
You
that audition?
use mine, guys, like, I went through it for some reason, like we talked about.
Yeah, it works. It's like that trophy room. You can always go back to your trophy room, and like you just described, that's your trophy room of successes, of times you tried and you made it.
Yep.
And you also have the look back on the, oh my God, I almost didn't do this room, and realize like I am so glad I don't live in that room. So let's keep living in the room of
Yes.
things I do.
Yes, 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 yes.
My dear, tell people where they can find you and about all these projects coming up and all the goodness.
The best place for people to find me and connect with me is at rachelebsmith.com, and that's Rachele bsmith.com. We both have some fun names.
Exactly.
And but what I'm really passionate about right now is that I have a free disruptive community that's at disruptivedare.com, and that really feeds into everything of the disruptiveapparel.com. And the disruptive apparel is really just wearable reminders for people, that I can't tell you how many times I've been terrified to do something, and because I had a shirt that said "Be Disruptive" on it, or "Flip the Fear," or "Gratitude is the New Sexy," or whatever the wearable reminder was, the disruptive thought on the shirt or the leggings that we have, like it made me do the thing, like to the point where I was so frustrated. I was like, oh, why am I wearing this shirt right now? Because it makes me live the message even when I don't want to. You know what I mean? And so, and just been so many powerful conversation starters where literally I've been walking down the street, and because someone was like, oh, be disruptive, what does that mean? And then I tell them, and then it ends up being this like, we end up in this like almost life-changing conversation where I've literally been like a random person on the street turned into this like very meaningful conversation where we're both crying and hugging. And so I don't know, like I say, it's such a passion project of mine. Like I feel so blessed and so grateful that I have so many, films coming out. It's not something that I like necessarily have to do. I just feel so passionate about it because it's like literally changed the trajectory of my life just by living the message. And Disruptive Dare, my Disruptive Dare group is, again, it's like free. It's like all donation based group that I just have that, people in there are like literally supporting each other and empowering each other like I've never seen before. And every month we have a new focus. So like last month was all on like a habit creation challenge, and you can win free prizes for literally just doing the things that, we want to actually do. So it's all about like gamifying growth and gamifying goal achievement. And this month is all on learning how to love money and create more of it. Because I think there is, I just want to help eliminate or decrease suffering, and find both through community, through the superpowers I believe we have of creativity or love or movement or music or quitting even, like what if quitting was a superpower,
It's
but how do
definitely
I,
my superpower.
yes, yes, like being brave, you know what I mean? Like courage is definitely one, and so, but I just believe so much in community. And one of my biggest missions is to put the social back into social media, and I feel like that's my only way of where I can really connect with and hear people's stories. And, every day I go in there and I almost start crying because of the real change, the courageous, brave changes people are making in their life and how they're supporting each other. So that's like my fam, so yeah, that's what and obviously like I'm always on Instagram at Brooke Smith and at Disruptive Movement.
Very cool. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything that you shared with us today.
Thank you so much for being you and doing this. I think it's literally one of the most, like I said, I've never heard anybody talk about this the way that you do, and the way that you've used your pain or suffering and turned it into a superpower. I can't celebrate you enough. I will have to feature you. I always do these like disruptive heroes of the week. Like you're going to be the next one because
That's
you are, you know what I mean? I think we all need heroes, and you're being such a hero in your community of like, hey, like quitting can be like one of the best things you've ever done, you know?
absolutely. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I look forward very
Yeah.
much to working with you in the future.
Yeah. Yes, 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 yes.
And for
Same here.
everybody else out there, until next time, happy quitting.